Were you not surprised a little bit how easily Alabama dominated Georgia?
Right. I was surprised in the games
Yeah.
themselves.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Okay.
I was surprised. Obviously, Alabama had a lot more to play for in that game than Georgia did.
Correct.
Which some of that maybe has to do with that.
Correct.
I don't know. Alabama, they couldn't hold anything back in that game. Anything that they had to show, they were going to show it.
Right.
Georgia, on the other hand, knew that no matter what happened, they're going to be in the playoffs. So you never know. Maybe they didn't want to show some things. I don't know. But
well, they were playing for a conference championship, though. I mean,
I know.
I understand what you're saying, but.
But I guess my point is, once they start getting down to the players and the team, they know, like, okay, well, we can take this loss maybe.
Right.
I'm not saying this is what they said, but, if Alabama gets down that game, they have to win.
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
different. You know what I mean? Or if it's different than Georgia would get down early in a playoff game. They have to win. But I don't know. I'm just saying that plays into it, I think, maybe a little bit. But I'm still surprised. I was surprised Michigan too beat Iowa 42-3. I would have thought that was going to be a closer game.
I would have thought so too. It was 14-3 at the half.
Yeah, at one point, Friday Oregon got beat by Utah.
Right.
So then at one point it looked like all the higher seeds were going to be upset. I mean,
Right,
Baylor
right.
beat Oklahoma State.
Right.
At one point at halftime, Alabama Georgia game was close.
Right.
Could go either way.
Right.
Cincinnati Houston game was pretty close. Could have gone either way. And Michigan Iowa was the same thing.
Right.
So at one point it looked like it was a good chance that they could have all lost.
Right. Right.
I mean, of course, these were at different times. So once Alabama won, you knew they weren't going to lose. But you know what I'm saying.
Right.
Yeah, and keeping up with the Cincinnati Houston scores throughout the game, I don't know. I thought Houston could have maybe pulled it out, but they obviously didn't. What were your what's your take on this, specifically the Alabama game?
Yeah, I guess I take a little bit of a different take than you do, even though I respect your take and I think it's very possible.
I'm not saying that's the only reason.
No. I know that. I'm just saying that I think with Georgia being 12-0, I think they wanted very much to knock Alabama out.
That's true.
Okay,
Yeah.
and I think they knew that if they lost that game, they were more than likely going to have to play Alabama again. Okay, because I mean, let's face it. I know anything can happen, but I really don't see Cincinnati beating Alabama. Okay, I mean, if Alabama plays like they did against Georgia, that game will be a blowout. All right. Yeah. So Georgia knows now that to win a national championship, they have to beat Michigan, which is likely, and then they have to beat Alabama, and they haven't been able to do that. So I think, the old saying, when you have a chance to knock out the champ, you better knock him out or he's going to win the fight on points. And I think that's Georgia had a chance to knock him out, and they couldn't do it. And the thing that was so strange about it is Georgia had a 10-0 lead late in the first quarter, early second quarter, whatever it was. And then their defense, I mean, Alabama dominated.
Supposed to have such a great defense. What was up with that?
Well, they couldn't contain the quarterback. I mean, they couldn't get to him. He ran a lot. He threw a lot. But, I just thought the defensive plan was poor. They didn't make any adjustments at halftime that I saw that stopped it at all. It was just a very strange game. I mean, the halftime score of this game was Alabama 24, Georgia 17. So they were very much in the game at halftime, and they couldn't really make any adjustments to stop it. And I don't know. I mean, I guess if they turn around and win a national championship, all will be forgotten. But I think you still would have been nice to win your conference championship undefeated and knock your biggest rival completely out of it.
I think you're right. I think wanting to win a conference championship is important to the team, I think. But also maybe more important is knocking Alabama out of it. Probably.
Exactly.
Because A, they don't have to play them, and B, they would want to knock one of their rivals out, I would think.
And the key is not to have to play them. I mean, because you look at it this way. If Georgia would have beaten Alabama, more than likely they would have played Notre Dame. And we've talked about that. I did not see Notre Dame beating Georgia. They might have made it competitive, but I didn't see them beating Georgia. And then you would have had Michigan play Cincinnati, and Michigan, either way, whoever won that game probably wasn't going to beat Georgia. So not only would they have knocked Alabama out, I think they would have had an easier road to a championship, and they just had no answers for the Alabama quarterback. I mean, he was unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, give Alabama credit. I guess I'm just trying to think of a reason why the score was how it was, because I'm so surprised. But maybe the reason is just they're not as good as Alabama. But after watching Alabama all year, I don't think they're as good as past Alabama teams.
No.
I just don't. In this game, this game is the outlier, but they almost lost to an Auburn team with the third-string quarterback who had one leg.
Yeah.
He could barely move.
It's amazing, isn't it?
So I still think Georgia's the favorite to win the national championship. What do you think?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I agree. I think Georgia's going to play Alabama for the national championship. Okay, but I think I don't know that I see unless your theory holds true. In other words, let's say in the second half it was 24-17 at halftime. I'm not saying this happened. I'm just saying
it happened either.
I'm just saying. Let's say that I think Alabama scored first to make it 31-17.
Did, yeah.
I mean, let's say they thought, hey, look, we're not going to beat this team today. Okay,
Right.
so let's play a vanilla defense. I don't know, and maybe they'll have something for Alabama come championship game. Possible, okay? But from what I saw, unless they can figure out a way to contain the quarterback and play better coverage on those receivers, I just don't see them.
And not only from a coaching standpoint, but from the players' standpoint, this is obviously not the way they should be thinking, but who knows how they think. Maybe when it was 31-17, maybe the players were like, who cares? We'll get them next time.
Right.
Get this,
Right.
And they just kind of relaxed from that point.
Could be.
Who knows?
Could be. I mean, could be. And really, if you look at Georgia, I mean, I hate to say this because we didn't do it all week long. I mean, the funny thing is, all year long, we were talking about how Georgia was the unquestioned number one football team and how they were just dominant over everybody. But now, the fact that this game happened the way it did makes you kind of look a little bit at their season, right? I mean, the only team they played, if you really look at it, that was ranked highly was Clemson opening week. And they played a great defense against Clemson, but then they beat UAB, South Carolina, Vanderbilt, Arkansas, Auburn, and that's a game. They beat Auburn pretty badly. Auburn gave Alabama, Kentucky, Florida, Missouri, Tennessee. I mean, they really didn't beat anybody that you would say could challenge
I
them.
don't really buy that because Alabama plays similar teams.
They
They're
did.
both in the SEC.
They did. You're right.
And then the team, the games that were the toughest games for Georgia, they dominate.
You're right.
They beat number 8 Arkansas 37-0.
You're right.
Number 18 Auburn 34-10.
Right.
Number 11 Kentucky 30-13.
Right.
Florida wasn't ranked at the time, but they're an SEC team. They're fairly good. They beat them 34-7.
Right.
I mean,
Well, but then
So I
what
don't
does
know
that
if
what does that say about Alabama then? I mean, either Alabama's got the best coaching staff in the world that was able to make such a difference in 1 week from the Auburn game, or their players are so good that they're able to turn it on when they need to turn it on.
yeah, that could be that latter thing could be true. I mean, Alabama knows. Think about all the championships they've won and the storied program. I think the players sometimes maybe they kind of let that get to them. Sometimes they kind of,
Could be.
they kind of I don't want to say. I'm trying to find a good way to say it. Maybe they let their guard down some games.
Right.
You know what I mean? But they know when they need to turn on and they can turn on maybe. But I would have thought that Auburn game was a game they needed to turn on in, and they barely won.
Right.
I mean,
Well, the funny thing is though that you mentioned that, in his post-game press conference, Nick Saban, well, he said this all along over the last few years that the press always dumps accolades on Alabama. Alabama's the best team in the country. Alabama's this, Alabama's that. And Nick Saban says, he calls it rat poison. He says, you always pour out this rat poison and sometimes his players buy into it and think that they can't be beaten.
Yeah.
But he said the rat poison that you guys gave us this week was yummy. In other words, everybody said this week, what? Alabama was a 7-point underdog. There's no way they can beat Georgia. And you're right. Maybe he was able to get the players to say, hey, guys, nobody thinks you're going to win this game.
yeah, it says they use underdog mentality.
Right.
So
and it's very possible.
And if that was a big factor in their win, they're not going to be underdogs if they face Georgia again.
That's true.
So especially after they beat Cincinnati 60-0.
That's
true. So
Well-
it's going to be more of a I guess you could say level playing field when the time comes.
That's true. That's true.
Or the tables would be turned. Georgia, who hasn't had any difficulty all year, would now be underdogs.
That's true. Yeah.
And, see how they play then.